We found ourselves very recently in an unusual situation, and you may think us crazy for having done what we did, and I wouldn't blame you.
Yeah.
A pipe burst in our unit. So the pipe was repaired, but there was water damage in the walls. The property owner said we basically needed to vacate the unit for a week so that they could do a proper set of repairs on that. As well, with my day job, I have to take a minimum amount of vacation every year. And I think that's a fantastic policy. It's for mental health and things like that. They made allowances for COVID where they increased the carry forward of vacation time by double, but that still required me to take a week because I had taken a week at the end of February, which I talked about in our previous podcast all the way back in February. And so I needed to take a second week. As well, school in some form is returning. Plus, we had been cooped up since mid-March in our place,
Yeah.
and I think that we adapted well and we responded well and we took things very seriously. But I think a break was becoming necessary for everyone's mental health as well.
For sure.
It's not like we were at each other's throats or anything like that, but it's just that when your work in your home and everything else is all in a relatively small space. That's just not great. All those reasons, those like sort of 4 different reasons all came together. So we decided, okay, we were going to take a trip of some kind, but how do you do that safely?
Yeah.
In the days of COVID in August 2020. So we thought, okay, first off, we had to rule leaving Canada. We're based in Canada, if you aren't aware. And Canada's borders are closed to leisure travel. So that was just simply not an option for us. Some people have tried to find ways around that rule, which we do not advise. And I want to make that abundantly clear. While we did travel this week in the midst of COVID, do not risk your lives for travel.
Certainly not.
Or the health and safety of other people. Or increase the strain on the medical system. As much as possible. So that's something that we were keeping in mind. And so we're in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada. And so the next part of our decision making was for this trip to look at the various provinces in Canada, states to our US friends. And we found that BC, for most of the metrics, came in 4th, while our neighbors to the east, Alberta, came in 3rd. And so we couldn't in good conscience go from the 4th most dangerous to the 3rd most dangerous area for this illness. And so we decided, okay, we're staying within our own province. Was a decision we made. In terms of getting around, we ruled out flights very early. There was one day where Vancouver International Airport, YVR is the airport code that people often refer to it as, YVR. YVR had 7 different flights go through it that had COVID positive passengers. So we ruled that out pretty quickly.
For sure.
We looked at some ferries. They've done some things. They've changed throughout, but we ultimately ruled it out just because, again, confined space with other people. So ultimately, that left one inevitable conclusion: road trip, which suits us fine.
It really does.
We've done plenty of road trips. This Vacation Impossible adventure of ours began with a road trip. So we did a lot of different research looking at different things. In order to book a campsite, that required booking a month in advance, and we had left it a little too late. It wasn't, because we didn't plan on traveling at all. But then these things all started coming together relatively quickly for us.
Yeah.
So we looked at renting an RV, but that's a very popular option right now. So I think like the costs were starting at like $1,200 to $2,000 just to begin base costs.
Yeah. That's pretty insane.
Yeah.
And that was just for a couple of days, too. I think it was like a weekend or something.
Yeah, something like that. So, and so people are pursuing those options. And if you have the means and the availability, those are probably relatively safe things. Ultimately, we decided to go to a relatively small community. And so we took it easy and slow. And so over the last week, I think we've refined how you can safely take a road trip in this time if you have sort of the need or the situation that makes sense for you. So some important things that we found that help. Number one with a bullet has to be, I think, wearing a mask.
Yeah.
So we have brought along, a lot of masks. We had some various different homemade ones that Mindy had made. And so we learned pretty quickly which ones worked better than others in terms of how much fabric to use.
Yeah.
So that was helpful. So definitely wearing a mask. Vacation Impossible wholeheartedly agrees with wearing masks during this time if you medically can.
Absolutely.
As much as you can. Another part was hand sanitizer. You've heard a lot of these things before, but we bought a bunch of little Purell containers that we have, little bottles.
Like the travel size ones you can get from the dollar store.
Yeah, and then we have some, like we each have our own, as well as we have a few in the car, and we use sanitizer as provided or mandated. Some places mandate before you walk in, you have to sanitize your hands, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
We're happy to comply with that. And so basically every time we went back to the car, if we had touched anything, we would sanitize our hands. Yeah. And that's something that we'd been doing in Vancouver previously when we go buy groceries and things like that anyways, so that was part of our habit along with the mask.
Exactly.
Also, I mean, social distancing as much as possible, so the three of us might be in an elevator at one time, but never with any other groups of people, and trying to politely keep our distance, and that wasn't a problem. Nobody was giving us funny looks for hand sanitizing or keeping our distance, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that we need to make as much effort as possible. We need to be as kind as possible to each other. I think that trying to be as understanding as possible, because you just don't know what other people's situation is. They might not medically be able to. Yeah. And so I think encouraging is good, shaming is bad. I think that is where it goes too far. Yeah. Another thing that we did, with one notable exception, was we got our food to go in every opportunity we could. We did not do dine-in, except we did try one restaurant that was attached to the hotel because we had gotten a voucher. And when we went into that restaurant, it was almost completely empty. Like one of the table was occupied. So we took a table in the furthest corner. And then things got busier, and as it got busier, people weren't really adhering to protocol. Yeah. We mentioned to the waitress, she took action, and that was all fine. Yeah. But we had already only intended to do about one dine-in option on this trip anyways, because of our risk tolerance. And so that just really quickly showed for us, like, yeah, you walk into the restaurant, it's empty, it quickly fills up, and the patrons don't necessarily follow the rules, and now you've taken a greater risk than you thought you were taking.
Yeah.
And so we have found that a lot of websites have been set up for restaurants where you can pre-order for pickup, and also delivery and other options. But we've been doing that pretty exclusively, and so we have been. It might seem a little strange. We've been eating in our car. At times, it makes sense. One option that we found has been totally delightful is finding a local park.
Yeah.
You can just open up your Google Maps or whatever you might have on your phone, search the word park. And most parks, it's very easy to social distance. Bring a blanket or a towel, and you can have a picnic, or find a picnic bench you can sit on, and that works. Being prepared as much as possible is really helpful, so that you know. One of the things that we did is we looked into the COVID mitigation tactics and policies that the various hotels and many of the restaurants we went to had before we went, so that we knew whether masks were mandated. We were wearing masks regardless whether it was mandated, but that increased our comfort level when we were deciding on a place to go or a hotel to book. The Hilton properties seem to be doing a very good job of mitigating things. They've got those blast shields up. We've gone to a couple Hilton properties, both here in Langley and in Kamloops. One of the things they're doing with their pools is that they're either closing the pools completely, or they're pre-booking half-hour slots where you can have the pool to yourself, and then some locations are doing cleanings between those bookings even. Yeah. Which I think is a fantastic way of doing things. In fact, I love the idea of private pool time being pre-booked. Like, it might not be really practical when hotels are at full capacity, but that was kind of nice. Like Hilton, if you wanted to add like a silver level perk or something, having like a particular pool time or something, that would be really that'd be pretty posh. And so that's something that they've been doing, having hand sanitizer. They don't have their breakfast at like Hampton properties, but some of them have been giving you like a breakfast bag that'll have like a muffin and like a Nutri-Grain bar and a bottle of water and an orange or something in it.
And a loaf.
Yeah, it was a banana. No, it was
blueberry lemon.
Blueberry lemon loaf is what at this Hampton here in Langley gives in the morning, which it was pretty good. Yeah, and the loaf was made by a Canadian company, so that was nice to sort of support local that way as well. Most places are doing like frequent cleanings. One thing that I like that Hilton has been doing is they have a 24-hour period between letting the rooms be available for guests. So they go in.
Hilton is doing that? Because I know the hotel we stayed at in Vernon is doing that as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. So they must both be, which is great. So basically what Hilton does is they go in and they sanitize everything with Lysol products, and then they put a seal on the door, and then they don't rent that room out for 24 hours after that.
Yeah.
And so I think that seems fairly effective. In Canada, there's the COVID Alert app you can load on your phone that connects to other phones via Bluetooth, so that if someone does get diagnosed, they can do very rapid contact tracing and notification.
Yeah.
And so I've had that active the whole time on my phone. Things like that are great. And yeah, having apps, but it's all the more important now to have those sorts of things. If you have a favorite, fast food chain you go to all the time, maybe downloading their app for pre-ordering, online ordering, everything that reduces those points of contacts. We haven't used cash for practically anything. We've used cash to get some feed, to feed some animals, some goats and horses.
Yeah, a couple quarters. Yeah.
And we did leave some cash tips behind for housekeeping staff, which we imagine they will do safely and sanitize. But other than that, it's been paying online or with tapping plastic as much as possible.
Yeah.
A lot of places are really good about wiping down their Moneris or Transelect machines for debit and credit and things like that. This isn't the COVID podcast. We wanted to talk about that in case you are considering traveling for whatever reason during this time, some of the things that you can do, and just kind of reporting on our experiences.